Howdy, howdy, freaks. Welcome back to Think Shank, where we ask questions about sports that aren't raised nor explored enough as far as we can tell. You can find us on Twitter and Instagram at ThinkShank, no space. Email us at thethinkshank@gmail.com. I'm Skyler Reinhardt, your personal NBA junkie, tour guide, philosopher, or whatever else you'd like. We are still doing it for clout, so let me know. Both about that and the little intro song. I guess more of a beat that I wrote. If you didn't know, I produce electronic music as well. Have been for 8-9 years, something depressing like that. But what's not depressing is my debut album is done and on the way. I'm sure this is very far from what you expected to be hearing about, but you know, you got to do what you can. If you had even 1 or 2 brain cells worth of affinity towards that intro and you like some of it, stick around, stay tuned, and you can do that best by following me on Twitter at Reinhardt Skyler. That's ReinHardt, Skyler, Skyler. Instagram at Skyler Sam, Sam Reinhardt. All right. Well, welcome back, everybody. Second episode. Pretty quick turnaround, but we did just wrap up NBA Rivals weekend. I know it was a week-long thing. They want it to be. I don't think I'm saying anything too spicy when I say that the weekend made everything else pretty much pale in comparison. It is Monday, January 9th. Do not ask me how early in the morning it is when you have a day job and a billion interests that I guess you just care way too much about. You're just going to do what it takes. So January 29th, Rivals Weekend. We got 2 big buckets, as you can tell by the title here. The first one, of course, is about the Embiid no-show. I just want to recap really quickly a series of events to my understanding, what actually happened, in what order, at what point, and then, of course, my perspective on that whole situation, sort of why I think that it uncovers, evokes, surfaces some really key potentially critical risks and whatnot, who's at fault, to what extent, why, all of that, and who's not at fault. Cool. And then after that, I want to double click into a couple of the other standout games that have some pretty just thrilling and kind of just overall really, really exciting, really energizing takeaways, observations, etc. We have that, of course, that Boston blowout by the Clippers, and then the absurdity that was the double overtime game in the Bay that the Lakers took from the Warriors. So those are the big 2 there. I know I said from the first one I'm going to try to keep it short, so we are going to try. Did my best to really streamline everything, so we'll see where this one lands. But now we got an intro song, so onwards and upwards. Thank you, as always, for tuning in, and coming up next, we are going to dive right into it and discuss Mr. Embiid. Coming up. All right. So, Philadelphia, traveling all the way out to Denver. They only play once there every season, just once. And this is what I know happened. Joel Embiid was listed as available up until the last minute. And when I say last minute, I mean under 15 minutes to tip off. Like, Woj tweeted out, I believe, at like within the half hour of when it was supposed to start. I'm trying to remember at this point. I don't know if it was at the top of the hour or the halfway hour, but it was like within that realm of time. Again, before that point, absolutely zero indication he was dealing with what Woj later reported was knee soreness. Excuse me. It was reported as knee soreness. Apparently, the medical staff of the Sixers took a look at him warming up for the game. Again, totally normal pregame, whatever. Saw him warming up, was basically just yanked him. Wasn't listed as, unsure. And then, again, about that 15, 20-minute mark before tip-off, news broke that he was going to be sitting out. The last game he played in lead up to that was 2 days before that, where he played 31 minutes against the Pacers. Granted, the Pacers have a pretty fast pace, but he was listed as available and active. No reporting coming out of it. There wasn't an incident in that Pacers game, yada, yada. And you can just see that a lot of people had a lot of feelings. You have two incredibly talented guys who only get to play in each other's home stadiums once ahead. The last bit of context I wanna bring up is last week Denver played Philly in Philly. And guess who won? The Sixers. And pretty resounding win, I will say myself, by Joel, Maxey, and the squad over Denver. And following that game, feeling super great, I'm sure. I should have looked up Joel's stats on that game. My apologies, but it was a pretty resounding win, and Joel definitely played well. Actually played in the fourth, which is wild. He was chatting with Jokic after the final buzzer briefly and was asked about it later on in that interview, post-game. Not like the official post-game interview, just on the courtside following the last buzzer. What'd you say to Jokic? And he said with a smirk that he is the best player on the planet. I think people took that pretty sincerely. And here we are, I want to say under a week after that. I'm trying to remember exactly when it was last week. But the whole world, of course, was very excited for that. Anyway, and then the rest happened, as you know. And here is the so what. By the way, that's how I'm going to tackle all of these. So we're going to do the what, and now here's the so what I care about, and what I would say on this stuff. So, number one, I have titled Obligation versus Opportunity. Joel Embiid is treating matchups, big matchups, like it's UFC, which just isn't the spirit of the sport. This kind of no-showing stuff, not just to Denver, by the way, it really gets to a point where it feels like the equivalent of saying, I'm intentionally waiting for my best chance of competing against you. You, in this case, being obviously Jokic, obviously at altitude. Obviously, it's more tiring. And I'm not going to come out of the gates and just say dumb shit like he's not in good enough shape and he knows he's going to get his ass beat and he doesn't want to risk the narrative changing on his season and how good he is. But before I do that, let's talk about the obligation piece, because there's really just two main camps here. There's essentially the obligation piece. How obligated is he to compete in all these big games? Are we as fans just overinflating how much any of this really matters in the minds of the players themselves? I 100% concede that it is hypocritical to say the postseason is the only real barometer of measuring effectiveness and success, but then also be upset when players sit games in the regular season, which is pretty long. Fair. And that's why I'm going to start with obligation here. So Joel Embiid is obviously not obligated to play every single game. However, I know, he knows, everybody knows the backstory of this specific matchup. I think schedules come out in September, if I'm not mistaken, something like that. Two of the last three MVPs, had gone between the two of them, right? Last year, Joel Embiid. The previous two were Jokic. Last time you played in Denver was 2019. And you also knew that this was a Rivals Week event, which, funny enough, as far as the over 500 teams go in this Rivals Weekend matchup, nobody else fucking sat. Like, it was really just you that was kind of shirking this thing, and it's almost like, I don't know. I know that we're trying to get gimmicky here, we being the NBA and Adam Silver with the IST and I guess now Rivals Week or whatever, but that doesn't really help, I guess. But let me transition over to the opportunity now. So again, unfair to expect Joel Embiid to play every game. Like I'm saying, you cannot be double standard there. But given the backstory, given the questions kind of under the surface, I don't think many people would disagree with the take. At minimum, this was an opportunity for him to come out like he had this matchup circled on the calendar and to put those questions and murmurs to bed. I mean, he's having an insane season, right? No doubt getting the scoring title. He's doing his gosh darn hardest to ensure all of the narratives are pointing in his favor for his MVP candidacy to get back-to-back MVPs. So it's definitely an opportunity. Again, I really hope that isn't super controversial there, which, again, I'm admitting the obligation piece, not raising a pitchfork, not bringing out a torch, saying, oh, my God, you should have played, and I don't want to lend half an ear to whether or not you had an injury and whatever. I don't care. I think load management, of course, was invented by trained professionals, and if all of that is fair, okay. Definitely just had a lot of missed opportunities in Denver then. Interesting, especially when Embiid is really not done a ton in the postseason, and Jokic had to win a title to get any goddamn respect around here. It's just interesting, and so I'm gonna break this down a little bit deeper now. So here's why I still think it's bad. Right, you're not obligated to play. You had the opportunity, but that's on you to cough it up. Great. So why do I still think it's bad anyway? So table stakes. disrespectful to the attendees. Obviously, if you were going to circle any matchup on the schedule, Michael Malone in post game and Jokic and whoever else can say this isn't a rivalry, but let's just be honest with ourselves for a second here. It obviously is, if for nothing else than the fact that you have this tug of war of leading MVP candidates, whatever. It's disrespectful to Jokic because obviously you won last week. Apparently you had nothing but glowing things to say to him after the game, and then you back out at the very last second, or at minimum allow yourself to get pulled out. Again, I don't know the ins and outs here, but I think we can all probably agree that even if it was let me give this a shot, it's almost reminding me of when Anthony Davis came back in the postseason. When was that? I'm struggling to remember, but came back, of course, was really not that good, and then had to come out. I don't think that's best practice, but of course. So you have the attendees who bought the tickets, Jokic as a worthy opponent, even though you had great things to say about him last week, Denver as a broader opponent, which is where I think my headlights start to light up that face Nick Nurse a little bit. Of course, the league, as far as the product that you are putting out there for Rivals Weekend, etc. Also, the gamblers. Probably not a surprise to anybody, but in a matter of milliseconds, the spread went from -5.5 Denver to -13. I'm actually surprised it was only at that, but of course it ended up being inside the spread anyway. But that's crazy. And here's the thing: if Joel Embiid is your best player, and he gets this type of treatment and sets this kind of example, I think it's objectively a bad thing. And I think that because of the example it makes for the team, example it makes for the league, fuck the regular season, who really cares? I think if you lined up all of the very exciting head-to-head big matchups over the course of a season, the list would be much shorter than you probably think, especially with, the load management stuff and whatever. Obviously, with the Sixers and Denver, again, they only play each other once in each end and literally within a week. Whatever. But I think this is the other thing as well. And I have been just throwing this across in my brain for a while here. And I think this is ultimately where I really come back to. It's how much of, or rather, let me put it this way. To what extent do these big matchups serve as litmus tests for how valuable star players are in the NBA? Take a second. So really big matchups, get to see a head-to-head. Makes me think earlier this week with, Wemby and Chet. Throw in a ton of these matchups. Of course, the Lakers, Golden State, and, whatever. But you think about star players that have things to prove, and they're in the running, or they're candidates for certain awards, and blah, blah, blah. How much of these head-to-head matchups even matter? Joel Embiid has played in 4 road games against teams that are above 500 this season. So I wanted to leave that on the table for just a beat there, so that it sinks in. We are at 45, 46 games. There's some variance there, but we're 58, closing down 60% of the way through the season. And again, Joel Embiid has played in 4 road games against teams that are above 500 this year. We are all more than aware of his insane scoring, sheer dominance, doesn't even need to be playing fourth quarters. He is beating the living shit out of these bad teams that bad. He's straight up not even playing fourth quarters. He's playing like 30 minutes a night. And so then you hear from, well, I just read, but hearing from Philadelphia fans, Sixer fans, it's like, well, blind faith in his word. Because I'm just like, how actually, like, when you logically think through everything I've said so far, how are you going to defend this? How are you going to explain this? Blind faith in his word. So knee is super sore, paces are super fast, need him for the postseason. You're a hypocrite. You can't be upset with blah, 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 blah. Okay, well, if his knee is sore, I would have expected some genuine concern. But okay, sure, we can take that path. Then you hear things like, Jimmy Butler barely plays in the regular season, and he's an incredible post-game player, and maybe there's some correlation there or whatever. Okay. Okay. Also, I just think that's a hilarious argument because, you really do have to, like, Jimmy's gotten places in the postseason, so it's a little different. Joel has missed a fuckload of games and still has been hurt in the postseason, so interesting. Super good health. AD has been super healthy. Beal, Kawhi, they're making it look worse. Okay, well, I guess. Ultimately, this is kind of where I land. I think that the key questions coming out of this whole thing is this: at what point does the trend start to personally frustrate or concern you for the league, for the success of the league, for the entertainment value of the league? So based on the what and the sequencing of the what, like I said, last minute, was supposed to play, no indication, 2 days between games, hasn't played since 2019. His record against Jokic is now 6-2. Within a week of beating him, pulls out at the last second. Played just 4 road games against good teams this year. More than happy to just sit in the fourth quarter of a lot of these games. Had the gall to say courtside after he beat Jokic last week, when asked what he said to him, he said, "I told him he's the best player in the world." Well, you just disrespected the best player of the world, buddy. That's kind of step zero here. So, based on all of that, I just have a hard time believing that Joel is not intimidated of playing Jokic at altitude. Again, notice I'm not saying scale. I'm just saying a list here. He's definitely somewhat intimidated of playing Jokic at altitude. He's conscious of the impact that big matchups like those can have on regular season awards. Everybody knows the MVP is a political campaign about narratives. What is it? Chris Paul, the year the Suns went to the Western Conference, he finished like top 5 or something, averaged like 16 points. It's fucking crazy. Narratives are huge. And then C, he's aware that the narrative can very well turn in his favor if he successfully rewrites his own playoff narrative this postseason. Meaning, rest days matter. And even if they're against tough opponents with history like Jokic, it'll be worth it eventually. So those are my big 3. Definitely never, ever, ever wants to be playing Jokic at altitude. The only reason I would ever be rooting for the Sixers to come out of the East is so that they get absolutely clapped by Denver at altitude in the finals. He is very conscious of the risk of having not great narratives get born by him trying to play Jokic in those conditions. And he is also using that postseason you're a bum narrative as a crutch so that he can sit in these games. So that's kind of how I feel. It's really one of those, it's kind of like a I'm having a hard time, like talk me out of it kind of thing. Like I don't really understand when you really stack it up how you could really, really believe that none of those three things that I listed off are true in any capacity. You know, and the I have to preserve my body for the postseason, which happens to render me unavailable for these big games. It's a tough sell. You know, you're toying with the data, you know, that we have to assess your actual level of stardom. You need to play in these big, important games to really help us understand where you lie, kind of like an IPO. It's like, help me benchmark what your actual value is. And my last point here, it really makes me wonder, and this is obviously, again, a personal thing, whatever. It makes me wonder if Embiid would have played if Denver had gutted it out last week and won that game. Would he have played? Would he have played if he had to play Denver before Philly and got smoked? Would he have played if Adam Silver and the Illuminati matched him up with another team for Rivals Weekend? Say, the Bucks, who Philly is no doubt looking at, salivating from the mouth, trying to leapfrog them in the standings while they're puttering around with their re-engineered defense and new coach and blah, blah, blah. Just think about that. If you even half believe the answer to any of those is yes, or a lukewarm maybe, then what the fuck are we talking about? Seriously. If you don't want to play in these big games, it's not even just a numerical thing of just needing to just be on the court. This level of scheming is just not okay. Again, 4 road games against teams over 500 this year. So I'm gonna just leave you all with this, and we can move on. Let me know at what point would or did this type of bullshit or this trend start to personally frustrate you in thinking about award talks down the line. Like, even if you're a Sixer fan, let's say, or whatever, even if you're like, dude, he's just hurt, whatever. I'm not like, why would he make this up? Whatever. Okay. If that just keeps happening, let's just, Control Command D, just duplicate that specific scenario enough. Like, how many times is it gonna take for you to eventually not even just disqualify, right, from whatever the 65 games, but let's say he plays 65 on the dot, and then the 15 he doesn't play or let's even a hypothetical, not even Embiid, just someone. Like, at what point would it personally start to frustrate you? At what point does it really matter about taking off on the wrong days or, really tough days? All right. That's all for Philly. Coming up, I'm going to talk about the Boston meltdown and the Lakers-Warriors marathon. Stay tuned. All right. Welcome back, everybody. So I want to touch real quick on the Clippers-Boston game. There were only 3 quarters of game that was really played, and the reason for that was pretty simple. So here is the what. The what is the Los Angeles Clippers played the Boston Celtics on Saturday. It was the second day of a back-to-back, and they landed at 2 a.m. the night before. Boston did not have that. They were home, and they did not have their guy, Kristaps Porzingis. Kristaps gets a lot of love and praise, rightfully so, by Boston fans. I don't think it was any hot take that he was very integral to what they do, especially defensively. But I don't think we expected it to be this bad. That was the worst game of the entire season for the Boston Celtics. And I'll get into the so what later, but the what is started off the game with none other than Terrence Mann getting the ball rolling by hitting a three and finishing lobs and all these other crazy things that probably wouldn't happen if KP was there. I swear to God, every time Mann plays well, it just starts an avalanche, and the kid just gets all smiley and stuff. It's kind of great. By the start of the fourth quarter, here we go. The Celtics were shooting 33.3% is their effective field goal percentage. So again, that is taking the 1.5x into consideration in terms of their field goal percentage is not just raw. 33% is the worst of the season for them. They were putting up 82.2 points per possession. That is in the first percentile compared against their entire season so far. Again, obviously, first percentile is really bad. 99th percentile is really good. So while it might not be the overall season worst, it is very close to it, 82.2 points per possession. 3-point shooting, 20%, 24% from mid-range, 50% at the rim. 3-point percentage is first percentile, mid-range. Let me just say that one more time. It'll be easier. 3-point percentage, 20% from three. That's in the first percentile, again, compared against their entire season so far. So 20% from three, first. 24% from mid-range is third. 50% at the rim is fifth percentile for them. Tatum led everybody for the Celtics with 21 and 11, but on 8 of 18 shooting. The third quarter is really what dug and buried the grave here. Clippers blew it wide open. They went on a 20-point route, 20 points straight. Inside of that, Tatum got a really, really stupid technical for clapping, for not getting a call. One of my just really long kind of OG hater takes on Tatum, at least when he was younger, he was super easy to get in his head and get him all riled up with the refs. He's gotten so much better at that and so much more mature, but you could just tell that this game was really gnawing at him. And also, I could be wrong here. Let me know if I'm not, but I think it's very, very simple about this technical, just really quick. You can't clap at a ref. Like, I've definitely heard that on broadcasts. I've definitely read that. Like, it's pretty black and white. If you are clapping, exasperated, looking at the ref, like, it's pretty black and white, and I think it's been pretty consistently enforced, relatively speaking, and especially on the play with Tatum, you just couldn't really mess it up. It's kind of giving me flashback to Flowers from the Ravens getting that terrible unsportsmanlike flag earlier. Anyway, Cleaning the Glass is this amazing NBA analytics site. I promise this isn't an ad. I'm bringing it up because it logs and tracks all of those shooting splits and how tough it was for the Celtics, and intentionally cuts it so it doesn't include garbage time in the stats, right? Air quote. And it'll tell you when they start garbage time for every game. For this game, garbage time started when the fourth quarter started. The starters for the Celtics were sitting when the fourth quarter started. So what does this mean coming away from the game? Okay, so what are the takeaways here? I have here, Boston is immortal, and KP completes the Infinity Stones. On defense, Mann was finishing lobs. Tice and Plumlee were just eating off teardrops right near the rim. It was so clear Boston was not really sure how they were going to make up that defensive prowess that Kristaps brings. Horford played 19 minutes, Kornet 18, Hauser 16, so about even. Also, Joe Mazzulla didn't really go deep in his bag here and try to run Horford out there. Clearly, either didn't see it being possible for L, or didn't see it being an effective solution pathway, I guess. But just rotating in between those three guys was really, really tough. But most importantly, and most unsurprisingly, the offense was the problem. Boston can't innovate offense, whether it's fouls, whether it's focus, whether it's that fire. Man, it was hot when I was writing this script right here. All three of those just seem to break down when the system level offense isn't humming. That innovation, that break check that you see guys like De'Aaron Fox and Shea, and these like, let me just get to the spot, cut off the run, slow it down, even Embiid, whatever. Boston really, really struggles to do that, and it's really tough to watch. I'm not going to lie. Also, Holiday is getting old, or worse, or both. He put up 7 3 boards, 4 assists on 2 for 11 from the field, 1 for 7 from 3 in 28 minutes. The last thing I will just say about the overall Boston performance, it kind of reminded me of the Houston series when they went 27 straight without hitting. Like, obviously, Boston didn't, well, you know, it wasn't in the playoffs and they didn't miss that many threes in a row. But the thing about that game that I didn't realize until Eric Gordon went on JJ's pod and talked about it, actually, it wasn't a blowout, really. Like, Houston was able to generate relatively effective offense in step with the Warriors in that, despite their bread and butter not working out. This was like that, except they were not able to manufacture, you know, the non-system related baskets. So I would take this as an omen if I was Boston. The immortal line of live by the 3, die by the 3 really, really came to mind, and it was brutal. You guys better talk about health concerns and postseason and blah, 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 and Embiid. You guys better, like, make Kristaps into Bubble Boy or something, because that was really atrocious. But that leads to my last so what. So you can't really crucify Boston completely, but the Clippers are really fucking good. And if you double click on that, I think the first thing you will see is Kawhi is terrifying. The dude went 10 for 14 from the field in 29 minutes, put up 26, 7 boards, 2 assists. Again, man able to step in there and kickstart some stuff early on in the game. Just such, like, X Factor isn't even quite it, because I really don't think his offensive upside or whatever is really going to come into play that much. But just when it happens, it happens. It's just great to see. And then the last thing I wanted to bring up that I noticed was just that the culture. So there were a couple timeouts where I think Tatum went on, like, he scored like 7 points straight or something to start the second half. Yeah, 7 straight, cut it back to 12. And then timeout by the Clippers, and they push it back to 18. But while they were in that timeout, I really liked what I saw on the sideline between Harden and Paul George specifically were like talking with each other pretty animatedly on the bench, but like in like a collaborative way where I think Harden was like whatever, like standing and PG was like sitting or something. I forget what it was, but it was just like you could mostly see, you could see most of Paul's face and then like kind of Harden's profile, whatever. And like, it didn't seem like a ton of, authority was being thrown around or whining or like, why, what are you doing? Blah, blah, blah. I just really like kind of the body language there. It seemed like they were both really talking about mechanics or whatever. And whatever Harden was trying to communicate to James what James was trying to communicate to Paul was being taken, was really being taken. I think at the end he was like really nodding. And again, the punchline here is that this was in a timeout where Ty Lue is just sitting on a chair, whatever. And they're having this conversation like next to each other in like a semicircle, whatever, on the side out of bounds. And like basically Ty is letting them kind of scheme by committee, and it honestly looks great and kind of inspiring. So really like that. So overall, we have seen the floor of what the Celtics can look like. It unfortunately, for a team whose 1 through 6/7 was supposed to be the deepest and kind of like, insanely, world-beating talent 1 to 6/7, they looked really, really shaky without Kristaps. Again, shooting across the board was, in some of their worst games, or put up some of their worst performances across their different shooting splits compared to their previous season, all in like the same game. From threes weren't falling, mid-range, and rim wasn't falling. Your top 10 player in Tatum wasn't really able to innovate there. Brown was terrible from the field as well. So anyway, they're very mortal. KP completes the Infinity Stones, and the Clippers look really good. All right. Last but definitely not least, we have maybe the game of the year. It reminded me of that really early game between the Lakers and Clippers when we didn't know that we were going to get a healthy Kawhi and Anthony Davis for apparently all of the season, and like just all of the stars just showed out in like the third game of the season or something insane. Anyway, this game was an absolute marathon, and there are so many things I want to point out. I'm going to try my best to be really efficient. And I've also, we got to make moves. So, end score, 145-144, double overtime, Lakers win. Neck and neck, virtually all game. I'm fast forwarding to halftime. It's 68-63, Lakers on top. We've all seen the film before. How do the Warriors come out in the third quarter? It's always a frenzy. Except this time it came with a twist. 5.5 minutes left. AD goes down. Doesn't look good at all. He's grabbing at it, grimacing. Needs to shoot a couple free throws, which he makes both, which is dope. But immediately just take foul, walks off right into the locker room. Literally thought I wasn't going to see him till the other side of All-Star break. But then the impossible happens. Miracles aren't impossible, guys. But I'm foreshadowing. Third quarter ends 88-76. Golden State on top. No AD. Now you're down 8. Fourth quarter. 4 minutes left. Technically 3:58. Steph hits a 3 to put the Warriors up 9. He's obviously feeling himself. That is, I believe, their biggest lead up until that. No, I lied. They were up like 15 a little bit earlier, but you got 4 minutes left. You're up 9. You should be feeling yourself, man. D'Lo goes on to score 5 straight. Golden State can't hit. Reeves shoots free throws, of course. 1:43 left. D'Lo hits another 3 to put LA up 1. 1:27 left. Wiggins chokes 2 clutch free throws. Down 1. Golden State still can't hit a shot until Steph gets them to crawl to overtime. He scored their last 6 points of regulation in 3 2-pointers, one at 3:58 remaining, 15.1 seconds remaining, and then 5.2 seconds remaining. You can tell that's a big gap in there. So, at least between the first and the last 2. So, late game offense. Something. Are the Wolves the only ones that should be getting arrows for this problem? I don't know. But anyway, I got him to overtime. Okay, great. I have dubbed the first OT as Donkey Kong, parentheses, it's on. I don't think anybody wanted to play overtime, and it was pretty clear that guys were like, I'm going to go balls to the wall right now so that we can get the fuck out of here, land the first punch and just run with it. Bron hits his first 3 shots. Draymond blocked an Anthony Davis 3. With 1:40 left in OT, Reeves hits a fast break layup because nobody stopped ball. Puts the Lakers up 4. A minute later, Steph hits a 3. Now it's a 1-point game. Wiggins has a terrible foul on D'Lo, down 1, and then hits both. And then what do you think happens? Clay hits a 3 to tie the game with 7 seconds left. Each team only scored 12 points in the first 5-minute overtime period. Double overtime. I have this one dubbed as just anarchy / hot yoga. And that's a personal bit because, and I'm sorry, I am just sick right now. Gross. Anarchy / hot yoga. Hot yoga is has a personal connection with me because I had my ass absolutely grassed in my 2 hot yoga classes I've had the honor of taking. I don't know if I've ever been so exhausted in my entire life, and the fact that everyone else was about a quarter of my size and hardly breathing heavy, it really hurt the old ego. Let's just keep it at that. 3:58 left in double overtime. D'Lo hits a huge 3, puts the Lakers up 3. Brown hits his second straight shot to kick off the period. Brown is just not really missing straight up in clutch here. Kuminga goes 1 for 2 from the line. Clay hits a 3. It's a 1-point game now. Steph hits a 27-footer. Step back 3 up 2 with 1:22 left. And now 53 seconds left. D'Lo hits a pull-up 3 in transition to put the Lakers back up 1. This was following 2 consecutive turnovers in a row. D'Lo was leading, the half-court offense and transition, literally coughed it up twice in a row. Gotta stop. I forget who it was, just outlet passed it to him. He's running up in transition and literally takes a pull-up, no hesitation 3. The absolute balls of titanium to do that. That is, I'm assuming, why he is on the team. That is what Brown has him on the roster for. That is why he's paid $18 million or whatever it is. That is kind of absurd for him, but not really that absurd. But anyway, that was probably the most inspiring shit I've actually ever seen. I think virtually everybody watching that game was either laughing or cringing at D'Lo fucking this up in crunch time, and then he put them up 1. Great, okay. Reeves goes 1 of 2. Golden State is really, really just struggling here, man. 5.2 seconds left. Steph hits a 28-foot 3 and got wide open because Vanderbilt was trying to sell a call or actually got tripped. Either way, I mean, Steph, it's a wide open three. Like technically speaking, on like ESPN.com, I think it's like 6 feet of space. It was gross. The net didn't even move. Okay, so then Steph puts them up one. Great. Lakers on their second attempt to inbound it. They had 2 timeouts. Burned the first one. On the second one, got it in to LeBron, of course. They ran a play where they switched Kuminga off of Braun, and the Warriors let Pajemski, of all people, switch onto Braun, and it was virtually game over. He got the inbound at the top of the key, got a half step in record time, it seemed like, went directly to the rim. Not trying to backseat quarterback here. He just absolutely dusted Pajemski, and then Draymond had to step up. He had AD for like maybe the easiest drive and dish I've had seen in the entire game at that point. Obviously, AD was in the dunker spot where he should be. Draymond had to step up. I was surprised that Braun tried to put that in, but whatever. So Draymond fouls LeBron, obviously. He would have just had a layup, essentially. So it was a good foul. And then what does he do? Well, LeBron hits both clutch free throws and puts the Lakers up by 1. Ended up being the game. Unreal. You had blocks you're not used to seeing. AD blocked Steph. Draymond blocked AD. You had an inadvertent whistle really late. I think it was in the 4th of the first overtime. That made no sense. And, of course, the Warriors ended up winning. I think that ended up with one of the threes that Clay or Steph made or something. You know, inadvertent whistles in crunch time are nuts. You had the flagrant no call on Draymond as he just raked Braun in the fucking eyeball. And literally nothing came out of it because LeBron didn't do what I think everybody expected him to, which was, collapse on the ground like his appendix was exploding in real time. No, he just tried to win the game. I think that was in overtime or something. This is on literally the last drive of overtime, the first overtime. Barely even flinched and just went at him. I just had to say again, that was a moment. And then I think after the game, I saw Draymond tweeted too something about, Draymond played 46 minutes, Braun close to it, whatever, something about like really enjoying the challenge of guarding LeBron or whatever. One, I appreciate that tweet, which is rare for me to say on behalf of Draymond. But 2, he's just right. I don't know why. That was just a really interesting moment. Like, they showed it on the replay. Doris is freaking out. Obviously, Mike is free. All the broadcasters are freaking out seeing this, like, oh, my God, that's insane. Miss a call and whatever. And look, man, Braun was just taking it right in there. And, I'm going to get into this in the so what, but he was swallowed up defensively, and it didn't really matter. It was just one of those moments for me. There's no acting. There was just winning and playing the game. Obviously, you also had the beyond clutch 3 shooting, the D'Lo Renaissance, as everybody's already calling it, even though I had it in my notes during the game. Probably still didn't have it down first anyway, but fuck it. So anyway, this is just an unreal game. If you happen to have League Pass and for whatever reason, weren't able to see it, I highly recommend it. All right. So now the so what. I'm gonna try to steamroll this as fast as I can for you guys. Get you all out of here. Number 1, that was peak time Lakers. We haven't seen this since the in-season tournament. Lakers roster as presently constructed really just designed to bruise and pummel you to get to the line. Horrible matchup for Golden State because they're way too small. But I think that this kind of fits into one of my so whats for Golden State because I looked up the lineups in this game, and I have here two small ... intentionally question mark. Kerr went with about a 6.5 man rotation. His closing starting five was obviously locked in: Steph, Clay, Kuminga, Wiggins, Draymond. That's their best lineup to close with, no doubt. But all throughout the game, again, factor in 2 overtimes into this. Podziemski played 28 minutes, which was the most out of anyone off the bench out of that 6. Saric played 15, Jackson Davis 6, and Looney 5. Looney was minus 14 in those 5 minutes, so I completely understand it. But, you know, you have Draymond defending Anthony Davis. You have Wiggins on Vanderbilt, Kuminga on Braun, Clay on Austin, Steph on D'Lo. Like, the size is really an issue. I don't know. Obviously, it was close enough with the shot making and the speed and the pace and space stuff, but oh my gosh. I was just really, really surprised about that, especially with Jackson Davis and how well he's been playing. I would have really, really expected him to play closer, maybe to that like 18 to 20 minute mark. But, you know, is what it is. I think Wiggins had a bit of a clapback game, and I was surprised as well. Good for Wiggs. So, peak time Lakers. There you go. Golden State sticking with small ball. Kerr's like your favorite crack addict who can't stop playing small ball. Next, we have Russell Renaissance. Clearly, D'Lo doesn't want to say goodbye to the SoCal Sunsets and get traded. What a fucking X factor. Oh my God. 2 consecutive turnovers, fast break pull-up 3 with 50 seconds left in double overtime. That is just how to not be on LeBron's good side 101, and you fucking did it. And I just was like, that to me, low-key, was the nail on the coffin of, yeah, this is kind of an all-time game. I did just, where is this even coming from, D'Lo? Thank you. The next one is Anthony Davis is locked TF in. You know, going out with that injury, came back out of nowhere with 9 minutes left in the fourth after missing more than a quarter in the locker room with what they said on the broadcast were hip spasms. Just came back and balled. Obviously, he couldn't have known it was about to go into double overtime. He just showed a lot of toughness and resiliency. I mean, especially down the stretch in double OT. Like, you saw his face, man. The dude was dead. I mean, obviously everybody was, but he was really, really pushing for it. I just want to give flowers to him because obviously he doesn't get, you know, a ton of love for being tough, showing toughness, whatever. Braun is still superhuman. Just leading these late end of period clutch drives to the basket. Especially in double OT, he just looked fine. And everybody else did not look fine. Everyone looked gassed. They even, you know, put him in the court game or courtside post-game interview, whatever, after they won. The very first thing homegirl asked him was, how you feeling, bro? You feeling pretty tired? And he's like, no, not really. And it's just like the furthest thing you can possibly concoct from like Zion's post-game interviews, like back in November, where he was like unable to even like talk. He was so like, this dude was like deathly calm and smiley. Obviously, it was a great win, but I was just like, the fact that you just have the energy to dive that deep to the basket and take the contact and still make the game-winning free throws, obviously driving downhill through contact all game before even the clutch stuff. So that man's just conditioning is just something we don't know. The last thing and most important thing, well, one of the last things, most important thing is potentially my biggest takeaway for the Lakers is that four position, that power forward position, should be the top of mind for what to upgrade right now. You got Vando, you got Prince, you got Rui. Let me quickly just walk you through what they put up. Prince put up 0 points, 3 boards, 1 assist. In 24 minutes, he was a minus 22. The guy does not fucking rebound, and I forget who said that on a podcast, but I don't know if that, just enabled me to keep my eyes peeled for that, or if he just jinxed him. Prince is so useless if he's not hitting shots. If he's just not hitting threes, he's a ghost. Rui played only 18 minutes. He put up 11 and 4, was a +6. He is clearly losing Darvin Ham's trust because he won't stop shooting middies. And I looked this up after the game, particularly once we get to the Vando stuff towards the end with the late game offense and the fact that he's just not enabling that much there. I had to look up Rui too. Rui is in the 21st percentile in mid-range accuracy, like total mid-range, but his frequency is 73rd. This is against all other forwards. His three-point accuracy is 37%, pretty respectable, but he takes just as many threes as mid-range jump shots. And the Lakers' long mid-range field goal percentage is 11.5% worse with Rui on the court. That puts him at the 6th percentile in the league. Brings us to Vando. 14 points, 9 boards, 5 assists, 4 steals, 41 minutes, and had a +30 plus minus. Everybody was freaking out about Draymond's +31, game high in 46 minutes. Vando had a +30, and I literally have not heard a single person bring that up at all. So I want to give the flowers, but I also want to point out him proving his value here, his ability to disrupt Steph and keep up with the Warriors' pace and crash the fuck out of the boards was just way too valuable. Obviously, in this game, Darvin made the right call here. My biggest fear here is that it's just entirely possible for all three of these options to have dud nights on offense, which the Lakers just physically cannot afford to have happen, especially late game. The last play of overtime, Bron got a half step on Draymond on the outside and then got absolutely swallowed by Wiggins and Clay, helping off of both Vando and AD. They basically try to space this out. This is when Draymond raked Bron in the face and they didn't call anything. I feel like LA's offense is at its best with Bron initiating, Reese and D'Lo doing more of the spot up than secondary playmaking, and AD roaming and then just eating offensive boards, assuming Bron and AD are healthy. So then what do they need at the 4? Obviously, you got your shooting, slashing, tenacious defense. I think the Randalls, the Lauri Markkanens, even of course, the OG Ananobis. 2 quick candidates that I really want to dive into a little deeper at some point are, 1, Jeremy Grant up in Portland. Shout out Kevin O'Connor from The Ringer for keeping tabs on him. I just totally forgot about him this whole time. And then my sleeper pick that I really, really, it's mostly just personal excitement and fascination versus actual fit. Maybe, well, not necessarily fit, but like just perceived peak and ceiling. Vezenkov from Sacramento. I think he's averaging like 11 minutes or something. He's like 6'9", same as Vando, and he doesn't even dribble. All he does is just shoot. And as far as a spacer, like I just actually think, again, if you believe in his upside and whatever, he hasn't been amazing. I think he's also 37% from 3, but again, he's really not playing a ton. I could just really see that working out, and he's got a great contract. All right. Sweet. So other takeaways now for Golden State. 1, it felt like a game that Steph and Golden State were used to winning. It was at Chase Center, and just the way that Steph was after the final buzzer sounded, obviously it was insane. It was such a back and forth game, but myself, and I'm sure I'm not alone in this, I just have this ingrained sense of bias when these kind of 50-50 games just end up working out for the Warriors for one way or the other. Obviously a great team, gifted team, great coach, great system, blah, blah, blah. But I don't know. It was just like a moment in my head, kind of like the Lions choking this weekend to the Niners. You know, when you just see those things happen and you're just like, oh, well, I know how this is going to go. You know, good teams know, or bad teams know how to lose. Yeah. So I was kind of surprised by that. I brought up the too small intentionally, kind of weird. Another question I want to get into at some point, but what is Kuminga's ceiling? I'm really not sure, but the dude is definitely an athlete and somehow looks like he's 17 years old, but also like the most athletic guy on the court at all times. It's just a bizarre thing to watch Jonathan Kuminga play. Like I don't know if he just isn't mentally, like his coordination is caught up to his body yet, or what it is. I don't know. It just feels like it's just going to take some time, I think, for him to grow into his body and really leverage it in ways that I think are going to maximize what he offers. But obviously he's just got great flashes. So I just asked the question, what is his ceiling? I don't know. I've got to watch more Warriors games, but it's good to see him playing crunch time minutes. And, that option, him being able to score off the bounce is just open. That just opens up so much for that team. Wiggins looks less like a corpse and can help on the defensive end too. Like that's huge, but great. And then the last thing for the, I guess, Warriors/broadcast crew, can D'Angelo Russell get a bang? Somebody get Mike Breen on the phone. Steph got a double bang, and Clay got one as well. Russell was hitting, he probably hit 4, maybe more. I forget how the technicals with the clutch, I guess 5 minutes left in the original fourth. I don't know. Russell hit at least 4 equally insane fucking threes and did not get a single bang. So I just, I gotta look out for that. I think, equity is important here. So, and the super duper last, taking a half step back, takeaway for me was, secret takeaway. I think Boston was another winner of Rivals Weekend, mostly because of the marathon that was the Lakers-Golden State game. Oh, my God. What a ride. All right, guys. That's it for me today. Thank you so much for tuning in. Again, you can find us over here at ThinkShank at ThinkShank on Twitter and Instagram. You can email us at thethinkshank@gmail.com. Let us know how we're doing. Let us know what you think of the intro. That would be amazing. You can find me personally at Reinhardt Skyler on Twitter, and then Skyler Sam Reinhardt on Instagram. Thank you all so much again, and have a fabulous Monday. Till next time.